We're kind of twinsies today with the blue, right? I didn't think about that. I was getting dressed. I didn't think about blue canvas, blue shirt, but yeah, we're kind of twinsies. Okay, in the fiber reverse, we talk about how stashing yarn is its own hobby. Well, for me, I think getting interchangeable knitting needles is like a separate hobby even from my knitting because I love them. And up until about 6 months ago, I had 6 interchangeable sets. But now, currently, I have 7. Yes, because I bought another set of Addi interchangeable needles. Now you're like, Carrie, you had 6 sets, 2 of which are Addi. Did you really need a 3rd set of Addi, a 7th set of interchangeable needles? Need? Maybe not. Wanted very, very badly, most definitely, because these are really special. Because they're square! These are their Addi Rocket Squares. These are a lace tip needle, and I'm gonna review them for you today. All right, so perhaps you have watched my original interchangeable needle review video. I will link it down in the description box if you don't watch that after this, because I do talk about all the other sets I have, all of which I've used. Well, one of them I hadn't used for that long yet, but now I've used all of them and I pretty much stand by that review. But these were released actually about 2 years ago, and as soon as I saw them, my heart skipped a beat because I have the Knitterprise Nova Platina Cubics needles, and I really have enjoyed working with those, but Addi's are like my favorite type of knitting needle. But before we dive into all of that, I just want to quickly remind you that down in the description box, there will be timestamps to various parts of the video. So if there's some crucial bit of information you want to get to, you can. Also down in the description box, you will find a link to materials or resources I think are helpful from today's video, including a link on where you can get your own set of Addi Rockets if you're interested in them. These will have a clearly marked affiliate link, and if you utilize one of my affiliate links to do some shopping, I might earn a small commission, and this does help support my channel. But I want you to know, this is not a sponsored video. I did purchase these needles with my own funds, and I always give a clear and honest review of whatever reviews I do on my channel because my integrity means more than anything. So yeah, I will always tell you the truth. Just look at some of my other reviews if you want proof. The reason I've always loved Addi so much is for 2 reasons. One, they're incredibly fast. Like, in my experience, the Addi needles are the fastest needles, and I love fast needles. I always say that I want my needles to be slicker than a greased pig in a mud. I have a need for speed. Very rarely am I like, slow me down. The other reason I've always really enjoyed the Addi system is because there are no extra tools to put the needles together. Most of the other major interchangeable knitting systems work with a screw system where you have to screw the needle tip onto the cable, and then you use what's called a key to tighten it down so hopefully it doesn't come loose. So one of the things I do love about the Addi click system is that you don't have any extra tools. You have your needle, and inside this needle, there is an internal spring system. And what you do is you take your cable,
and there's a ridge on the cable and a little dot on the needle. You line those up, and then you push down on the cable, which pushes down on the spring, and then you turn it till it clicks.
It clicks in place. Thus the name Addi Clicks. And if you do this right, the needle's not going to come off. And I have never had a needle come off the cable by accident if I had gotten the needle tip properly seated onto the cable. If it has come off, it's been user error. So that is how the Addi needle click system works. With that being said, let's take a look at the specifics of the Addi squares. So these are the Addi squares, and they come in a blue canvas envelope packaging like this, which I really do enjoy because it's so compact and flat. And there's something fun too about opening it up with all the flaps. I don't know, I feel like I'm unwrapping a present every time. But inside there's this little flap, and you will find a set of Addi square rocket needles. You can see I have a pair that I'm working on with right now that aren't in here. They're in this project next to me. The last 2 projects that I have worked in sort of a DK weight or higher, I have worked with my Addi rockets because I wanted to like really test out these needles. So these are currently in use. With this needle set, you get needle sizes that range from a US size 4 up to a US size 11.
And these are 5-inch tips. Addi also sells the Addi rocket squares in a short tip.
And of course, what's different and unusual is the fact that these needles are square. And the claim with square needles is that they are ergonomically better than the traditionally round needle, that they are easier on your hand to grip and keep hold of while you're working, and then therefore you don't have as much strain on your hands. That's the claim. I'm not sure if that's scientifically proven or not, but I can say that I do find these very square needles. Every square needle I've worked with, I have found very comfortable to hold. But there's a feature of the Addi square needles that's very unique, and it is this textured, this like corrugated texture that they have. Like, I have never seen a needle with these kind of ridges running across it like that. When I first saw these needles with this texture on it, I was like, what? Like, I was skeptical. I was like, why would you do this? This is really strange. I do not get it. The claim is that the texture on the needles helps the yarn sit better on the needles and creates better, more even tension. And I can honestly say, after having worked a few projects with this needle, I am a believer. Dial up the monkeys. I am a believer. So I've been working on this project with my square needles. This cotton that I'm working with is a cotton silk blend. So this is a slippery yarn. I'm finding that this yarn is staying on these needles incredibly well. I mean, you can tell I can slide them, but they stay put. Like if I pull like that, they don't move incredibly quickly. Let's compare that to this needle, all right? Let's see what happens. Already, oh, I can tell you already, just pushing them, they're definitely moving faster. Look how that pulls more smoothly and more quickly off the needle. See how fast I can change my tips out? It's great. Then this, you can see there's a little, yeah, there's more effort there. Thing is, like once I'm on the stitches on the tip though, it just comes off really smoothly like the regular lace needle. I don't know if my Addi square rockets are as fast as my original Addi rocket. I want to just call them my pink Addis because they come in the pink case. But I can say that if there is any decrease in speed, it does not bother me. I'm not sitting there going, oh, they're just not fast. No, I don't feel that way. And I do feel like they are faster than my Knitter's Pride square needles, which are metal, or my Haya sharps, which are also metal. So I feel like these are plenty fast enough. So a change between the original Addi clip needles that I have and the rocket square needles is actually the material that they are made out of. Both my Addi turbos and my Addi long lace tips, like these, are made from hollow brass that is coated in a nickel plating. Now, there is a concern with nickel being an allergen. However, Addi has actually since changed the material that they are coating their needles in. The Addi square needles are now coated in what is called white brass. From what I understand, they made that change because of concerns about nickel being an allergen. If I'm honest, it's very minuscule, but I actually feel like the Addi squares are a little bit lighter than my original Addi lace tips. I find though, and they feel a little different. Like the white brass feels a little smoother than even the nickel does. But yes, that is a difference. And you can actually kind of see the color difference. This white brass just looks a little bit whiter. That it doesn't look a little bit, it's much whiter than the nickel plating. So I don't think the white brass necessarily makes these newer Addis better than the old OG sets that I have. It's just a difference. Any interchangeable needle system is going to come with cables. These are the Addi cable needles. Their cords are a blue nylon that has the metal connector on the end. They're very flexible. They don't which I like. I like how pliable these are. Yes, they do curl up like this, but I've never had an Addi cable where I felt like I need to put it in warm water or anything like that to get to loosen up. You get 3 cables. The cables come in lengths that allow you to make needles that are 24, 32, or 40 inches long. One thing to know, with most interchangeable needle sets, the cables will have the length printed on them, and the length that is shown on the cable represents what the needle size would be from tip to tip. Meaning, this is the 24-inch cable, but obviously that is not 24 inches because you have to add the length of the tip plus the length of the cable is what tells you what your circular needle length is. Now, a big thing with any interchangeable needle set is, of course, the connection between the cable and the tip. Because of this system that they have, where the cable gets inserted into the shaft of the needle, there is this little bit of a ridge where the needle tip ends and the connector begins. I personally have never struggled with my stitches getting over that ridge. It's never been a problem for me. But your mileage may vary. You may not like it, and that may be a reason that you may not want to use the Addi clicks. Last thing that comes with this set are this, which I know probably doesn't seem all exciting, but it is rubber grips, and I think this is a great addition to these Addi sets. One of the cons of the click system has been sort of the grip that's required sometimes to insert the cable onto the needle tip. It can take a lot of force, or at least in the past it has. It's had to take a lot of force to do that. But they are now including these grips in with their systems, so this helps put the tip on. So let's just do that now so you can see. My needle here, I'm gonna grip my cable here. So now I have a nice grip. The rubber is helping me grip all this. And it does. Having these rubber grips really does make it easier to kind of push the cable in and turn the needle and it not be as difficult. That's really exciting. The other thing that I'm noticing using these cable is I think that they're using springs now inside the needle shaft that aren't as stiff. One of my criticisms of the earlier Addi needles was that spring when you first got the needle, the spring inside would be kind of stiff and it'd be really hard the first 1 or 2 times I had to put the cable on it. Eventually the spring would kind of loosen up and it would get easier to put the cable onto the tip. I have found with every needle that I have put on a cable that I am not having that issue with having to use a lot of force pushing the spring down. And I'm very excited about that. So little tool, very little tool, but I think it makes a big difference in terms of putting these needles onto your cable. And it's still less futzy than using a key. So there are a couple of things that don't come with this set that I think is worth noting. One is this. This is the Addi gauge. This came with my original Addi turbos and one came with my Addi rockets. I actually love this gauge and I'm kind of disappointed that it doesn't come with the set. But then again, this needle gauge wouldn't work with these needles anyway. Because of this square shape, you actually don't get an accurate reading of the size of the needle with the Addi gauge here. This is a US size 4 needle. It's 3.5 millimeter, but watch, it doesn't fit. It fits through the 5. In the description box, I'm gonna include a link to somebody who is actually selling a gauge that is meant to be used with this type of needle set. The other thing though that is not included, and they don't include in any of their click sets, which I really don't love, I wish they did, are these. These are the Addi heart stoppers. These are meant to go at the end of the cable to be a stitch stopper. Almost every other interchangeable system out there will come with stoppers like this, except for Addi. You have to purchase them separately. And I'm gonna not lie, they're a little pricey for what they are. Addi, if you hear me, please start including these, at least with your interchangeable crochet hooks. Please. The one thing about these needles is when I use them, I get a little bit of a black mark right here on my finger. And yet I can honestly say, like, here are the needles I'm using currently. I do not see any tarnish on these needles. I do not see the coating rubbing away at all on these needles. I have looked online. I have looked at reviews. I have not seen a lot of complaints like what I am experiencing. And so I think just my skin chemistry is such that with these needles, when it's rubbing against my skin, I get a little bit of tarnish on them. That being said, I'm not noticing any tarnish or any markings or anything like that coming off on my yarn. So am I disappointed? Am I gonna give up on my Addi squares? Are they being banished and I'm oh so sad that I wasted the money? No, not at all. In fact, I am enthusiastically using my needles. These needles are fast, they're really comfortable. I really like how the texture on the shaft of the needle is kind of giving me more control over my stitches without sacrificing speed. I love that so much, and I am an enthusiastic fan. Okay, if you watched my original interchangeable knitting review, you know that these needles, my Addi Rocket long tip needles, were like #1 without hesitation. And like, I was like, these are my ride or die. These are my BFFs. And now I feel like maybe I have 2 BFFs. I'm really enjoying these needles so much. I feel like I want to use them. I think these might more and more start becoming my go-to needles because I'm really enjoying them so much. That's really what it comes down to. Okay, that is it for me. I would now love to hear from you. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Are you interested in these needles? Do you have the needles yourself? What is your experience with them? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments below. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. You got some great information. If so, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your other knitting friends. Liking videos, sharing videos, commenting on videos are all great ways to help support my channel as well. And the most important way to support my channel is to hit subscribe and the notification bell. So once again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have a wonderful day, evening, weekend, weeknight, whenever you may be watching this. And as always, happy health and happy making. Bye. What am I doing? Okay. I don't know if they're as fast as the Addi, I don't know if these square needles are as fast as my Addi Rockets. Why can't I say Addi Rockets? These are the Addi Heart. The reason I've always loved the Addi so much is really